My parents gave away the house I helped save, then tried to take my cabin too. So I let the police finish the conversation. My name is Naomi Carter. I'm 34 years old. And the moment I realized my mother had erased everything I'd done for my family, she was smiling into a microphone with a champagne glass in her hand. My husband Ethan and I had just arrived at my younger sister Sienna's wedding reception with a generous gift tucked inside his jacket and the kind of polite smile you wear when you're trying to survive family events without bleeding emotionally in public. I was still fixing my lipstick in my mind, still telling myself to relax. When my mother stood up for her toast, she looked radiant, proud, glowing in that dangerous way some people do when they're about to call cruelty generosity and expect applause for it. Then she announced that she and my father were giving their home to Sienna and her new husband as a wedding gift. Just like that. Their home. The same home I had been quietly helping keep afloat for 5 years. The same mortgage payment that had been leaving my account month after month while everyone kept calling me dependable, as if that word was supposed to feed me emotionally for the rest of my life. The room burst into applause. People cried, laughed, reached for tissues, called it beautiful. I sat there smiling the way women smile when they are trying not to come apart in public. What hurt even more was that Sienna didn't look surprised. She looked touched, prepared. Like this had all been decided long before my mother ever touched that microphone. And that was the moment something inside me cracked. The drive home to Charlotte felt longer than it should have. Ethan kept one hand on the wheel and the other around mine. But I could barely feel it. I just kept hearing my mother's voice. We are giving our family home to our daughter and her new husband so they can begin their life with security and love. Security and love. I almost laughed. Instead, I cried so hard in the driveway I could barely breathe. When I finally could speak, Ethan asked the one question nobody else in that ballroom would have dared ask. Did they talk to you about it first? No. Not once. Not even a hint. That was the real wound. Not only that they gave the house to Sienna, but that they did it after 5 years of letting me quietly help carry it. 5 years earlier, my father Howard had retired sooner than planned after health issues. My mother Pamela started dealing with chronic pain. They were scared of falling behind. And I believed them. I still remember my mother crying at my kitchen table, saying they might lose the house. I told them I would help. At first I thought it would be temporary. 6 months. Maybe a year. But 1 year became 2. Then 3. Then 5. Sometimes it was the mortgage. Sometimes property tax. Sometimes a plumbing repair. Insurance increase. Medication. Groceries. A broken water heater. A car repair for my father so he could get to appointments. I covered what needed covering because I was their daughter. Because every time I almost said, "This has to stop," my mother looked at me like I was their anchor. The one they could count on. The one who never made things harder. I had spent years being proud of that. That night, it stopped feeling like love and started feeling like a role. And the truth was ugly. Sienna had always been the center of gravity in that family. If she was upset, it became a family emergency. If she had a dream, everyone rearranged themselves around it. If I succeeded, people smiled and said, "That's just Naomi being Naomi." Reliable. Capable. Strong enough to handle it? Do you know what those words mean in families like mine? They mean nobody asks what it's costing you. For weeks after the wedding, I tried to act like none of it had changed me. I buried myself in work, research reports, meetings, deadlines. My parents texted like nothing had happened. My mother sent photos of leftover cake and called the night magical. My father sent a thumbs up after Ethan mailed over the generous check we had already promised as our wedding gift. Sienna sent honeymoon photos from Napa, with captions about blessings and new beginnings. Not one message said thank you. Not one said we should have talked to you. Not one acknowledged that their fairy tale had been financed, in part, by my silence. Then, 2 months later, my mother called while I was between meetings. Her voice was bright, cheerful, almost casual. Naomi. Honey. I just wanted to let you know your father and I are heading up to your lake place this weekend. We figured it would be easiest to get settled before the weather turns. I honestly thought I had misheard her. Get settled? I asked. She paused like I was being difficult on purpose. Well, after giving the house to Sienna and Graham, obviously we need a new place. And your cabin is perfect. Quiet. Manageable. That was the moment my hurt turned into steel. Mom. No. Silence. Then colder silence. I repeated it. You are not moving into my cabin. You never asked? It is not available. Her tone sharpened instantly. Naomi. Don't be selfish. We're family. We can't stay with newlyweds forever. I leaned back in my chair and felt something inside me finally become unbreakable. Then maybe you should have thought about that before giving away your house. She inhaled like I had slapped her. You have a husband, a good income, and more than enough space. We need that cabin more than you do. That sentence told me exactly how she had always seen me. Not as a daughter with a life. Not as a person with boundaries. As reserve inventory. The family emergency plan with a pulse. So I lowered my voice and said, let me be very clear. You are not moving into my property. If you go up there this weekend, you will be trespassing. She laughed bitterly and said we'd talk when I calmed down. Then she hung up. I called Ethan immediately. By the time I got home, he already had a duffel packed and my laptop in the car. We drove to the cabin that same evening. Halfway there, he asked if I thought they would actually go. Yes. I said, and that's what scares me. They don't think they're taking something from me. They think they already own the right to it. When we pulled into the gravel drive after dark, my stomach dropped. My father's SUV was already there. The rear hatch was open. Plastic bins on the porch. Suitcases by the steps. One of my mother's potted ferns beside the front door, like she was planting a flag. The lights were on inside. They were moving in. My mother opened the front door before I even reached it, smiling that same polished smile from the wedding. There you are, she said. I knew once you got here, we could all talk like adults. I stepped inside and looked around. My father was carrying a box through the hallway. Sienna was in my kitchen opening cabinet doors. Her husband Graham stood there with that helpless look weak men wear when they know something is wrong but would rather be passive than decent. No one looked embarrassed. No one looked ashamed. They looked inconvenienced that I had interrupted the plan. "Who told you that you could come in here?" I asked. My father sighed like I was making the evening harder than necessary. "Naomi, let's not turn this into a scene. Your mother explained the situation." "No," I said. "She informed me of a decision you had no right to make." My mother folded her arms. "We used the key you gave us." "The emergency key?" I said. "For emergencies. Not for moving furniture into my house." Then Sienna had the nerve to look annoyed. "Why are you acting like this is some huge betrayal?" I stared at her. "Because it is." She scoffed. "Mom and Dad needed somewhere to go. You have a cabin you barely use." "I barely use it because I work," I said. "I also paid for it with my own money. Which means I decide who stays here." Then my mother tried the oldest script in the family archive. "After everything your father and I did for you growing up, I'd think helping us now wouldn't be such a burden." There it was. We raised you. We fed you. So now your life belongs to us in installments. I took a breath and looked at all of them. I helped you for 5 years. I paid your mortgage. I covered repairs. I covered shortages. I did it because I loved you. And you repaid that by giving the house away without even warning me." Sienna snapped back. "You keep acting like you owned their house." "I never said I owned it. I said I paid for it. There's a difference. And all of you know it." Then I noticed something small that hurt more than it should have. My books had been stacked off the coffee table. My blankets moved. And the framed photo I kept on the mantel had been turned face down so my mother could put one of her candles there. They hadn't just entered my property. They had already started erasing me from it. That was the final moment. I told them to put everything back in their cars and leave. My mother told me if I was going to attack the family, maybe I should be the one to leave and calm down. In my own cabin. So I walked out, got in the car, and called the non-emergency police line with a voice so calm, it didn't sound like mine. 15 minutes later, 2 sheriff's deputies pulled into the driveway. I showed them my ID. My deed copy. County tax records. They spoke to my family on the porch. Asked the only questions that mattered. "Do you own this property?" "No." "Did the owner give you permission to live here?" Silence. Then one deputy turned to me and said, "Based on the documentation and your statement, they need to vacate tonight." My mother stared at him in disbelief. "But I'm her mother," he said. "And she's the owner. You still need to leave?" That was when her smile died. Not faded. Died. For the next 20 minutes, the family that had spent years assuming I would absorb every cost and every insult carried their bins and suitcases back down my porch in silence, while red and blue lights flashed across the gravel. My mother's Fern went back into the SUV. My father wouldn't look at me. Sienna cried angry tears. Offended more than ashamed. I asked for a formal report number. Then I called a locksmith and changed the locks that same night. The backlash came fast. My mother posted on Facebook about being thrown out by a cold, ungrateful daughter who valued property over family. She left out the mortgage, left out the wedding gift, left out the warning, left out the emergency key, left out the part where she stood in my cabin and told me to leave. So I posted the truth. No theatrics. No insults. Just facts. 5 years of financial support. The wedding announcement. The attempted move-in. The law enforcement response. Screenshots of transfers with dates and memo lines visible. And once the truth was public, their version started to collapse. Because lies are loud. But facts are heavier. That's what happened. And that is when I finally understood something I wish I had learned years earlier. Being useful is not the same thing as being loved. Real love has gratitude in it. Honesty. Respect. And if those things are missing, protecting yourself is not selfish. It is healthy. It is necessary. And sometimes it is the only way to stop people from confusing your kindness with permission